Hi, everyone. I'm Jan Mercer-Doms, the Vice President of U.S. Development with Join Mayshad. We are an ecosystem of brands for women, by women, connecting women to each other and to the companies, causes, and organizations that champion equity for women professionally and personally. You're here with us today watching our Women in Money show, brought to you each and every week. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like and comment on what you see today. And also join Mayshad, where we together are revolutionizing how professional women connect, engage, and do business together. I am so excited and inspired for this conversation today. As we move forward into the digital world, I should say move even further into the digital world, it really is informing and shaping how we live and work and play each and every day. And we know that as we continue to heal from COVID, that all things related to technology will continue to play such a pivotal role in all of our lives. And so I'm here today with Randi Schochet. Hi, Randi, welcome.
Hi, Jan. I'm so excited to be here too and to speak with you.
I'm so happy. And you know what, we were talking before the show about, how we so wish we were doing this in person, but we have to make that promise to each other that we'll do more of these where we can all be back in the real world together.
Exactly. But I'm so glad that technology's enabled us to be able to do this right now in this way.
Absolutely. And today's show is all about AI. Randi, you're the CMO of Digital Reasoning, an artificial intelligence company at the intersection of human intention, behavior, and communication. I love that. And I'm going to open with a really interesting question to you, which I love about the work you do. You talk about using AI for good, and it really, truly is the heart within the machine. And that so many images are conjured up in my mind just when I hear that phrase. But tell us exactly from your perspective, what is meant by that, the heart within the machine, and how does that really truly inform the work that you do with your company?
That's a great question. Thanks, Jan. So my company is very, very mission driven, and our mission is to protect the things that matter. And from the moment that I started working at Digital Reasoning, it was very important to be able to express that and make sure that we codified in our mission, the way that we speak about what we do, and also in our identity, the fact that we are about humanity, we are about AI for good. When you think about what Digital Reasoning's legacy has been, Digital Reasoning has taken technology, which is understanding humans, the way that they communicate with each other, and identifying risks and opportunities in that language. And that's a constant in everything that we do. And so the company started by identifying terrorist chatter, working with the intelligence community through language and identifying those for the intelligence community. We then worked with Ashton Kutcher, with Thorn, his nonprofit, and was able to use, again, this application, this software, AI, to identify human risks chatter on the web for human trafficking and actually save young people from that horrible fate. So that was another. We now work with financial institutions, and we are safeguarding those institutions from a regulatory perspective, but also identifying risks, again, in how those employees communicate with each other. And we work with the healthcare industry, and we have a solution that's integrated into the patient navigator system and is able to actually identify markers for cancer. And that's so critical. So we're using it across such a spectrum of industries, and we're looking at the way that people communicate, and we're actually able to do good, as I said, to do good, to do better in the world.
I think it's so fascinating how the way in which we communicate and really what we say, because this is really, we know communication is complicated and it's the words that you use, but it's also then the nonverbals. It's how you say something and where you put the emphasis and the body language associated with that. Is there a way in which AI can go beyond that and actually also get to some of those nonverbal, soft communication aspects of how we think about communication in totality?
Yes. So what the beauty is of what Digital Reasoning does is traditionally, when there was surveillance, when people monitored communication, you really use keywords. Think about how you go onto Google. and everybody identifies a keyword, and then it takes you somewhere. So in order to look at the way people communicate, what people were doing to identify risks was to put in keywords. That is so imperfect. That's so difficult to do. It's not only timely, but it's inefficient. There were so many what we call false positives. What this technology does, because it's combined with machine learning, so that the technology gets smarter. The technology acts as almost a compliance officer and learns to look at communications in context and understand what people are saying. So if I'm saying White House, am I talking about the White House? Am I talking about a White House? So that's a very different meaning. That's, of course, not a risk, but that's an example when you talk about Apple. Are you talking about the computer? Are you talking about the fruit? So understanding the context of what people are saying and then being able to process that and get smarter over time is what digital reasoning does.
How do you think, Randi, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, and we don't know what's going to happen in the later fall and winter months in the sense of the potential third wave that's coming. But I'm really interested to know, how do you think AI will be used as a part of the response to the pandemic as we continue to move forward into it?
That's a great question. I think this is real time, right? Think about how we are communicating right now with each other on Skype. So more and more people, we have a distributed workforce. So are working in person, the ability for me to stop and speak with you or even pick up a phone, the way that we traditionally communicated has changed. So I know when I interviewed at Digital Reasoning, I might have told you, Jan, I had 12 interviews. Every interview, guys, was on Zoom, every single one. So for me, I know that more and more companies are using different channels. We have Zoom, we have people are communicating on Slack, on Microsoft Groups, on all different ways, WhatsApp. And so we need to be able to understand and monitor those channels and be able to make sure that we safeguard the way that people communicate. And really, if there is a risk or an opportunity, for example, you could have a customer service issue where a customer's complaint is not being serviced correctly or fast enough. This enables you to be able to respond more quickly. So that's the world where we exist. And I think we've seen enough from large companies and others that are saying we're never going to go back to 100%, in person. We will go back to some kind of blend, but we need to evolve with the times.
I like the example of the customer service rep, right? Because I think that sometimes we think about AI as kind of this overarching something that's out there, right? That impacts, big companies that do calculations with big data, right? But it really truly does also impact us and is designed to make our lives more efficient at the individual level, at the consumer level as well. Talk to us a bit about what's been most fascinating for you in that space. The everyday kind of aspects of how it impacts us.
Yeah. So that's a great question because honestly, I think there's a fear of AI, right? Everyone thinks about AI. What do we think about? Terminator, right? Like the world is going to be taken over by machines, or machines are going to replace me and they're going to do what I do. And AI, when you think about AI for good, AI helping people we all do these mundane tasks that often take so much time and actually take away from our opportunity to do the things that are more meaningful, where we can really use our skills and expertise. So you could think about the customer service rep. In healthcare, patient navigators, what happens is nurses are spending so much time administratively, they're not having the time to be with the patient. And so what we are able to do is create integrate into a system and be able to do that processing to free nurses up so that they can actually do what they do best and be with patients and give them the care that they need. So that's an example of AI. I was speaking to one of my coworkers and he said, think about AI as Iron Man when he puts on his technology suit and it makes him stronger and more powerful. We like to believe that AI can enhance what you're doing and not replace what you're doing.
Randi, what are some of the ways in which companies use AI to mitigate risk? You had mentioned risk before, and I think that looked like so many of us, even though so many of us did have insight that something like COVID could happen, but yet when we think about the impact of COVID at the healthcare level to individual businesses, small businesses, large businesses, and just the ways in which, you and I are, again, having this conversation this way, right? Talk us through some of the ways in which companies can use AI to just mitigate risk. And as we evolve, will things like COVID perhaps become more predictable because of the advances in technology?
Yes, so 100%. So I think that I hope so many people have seen how companies are using AI to predict COVID, to be able to monitor where COVID is spreading, or be able to identify and safeguard people, communities, towns. So AI is being used absolutely to be predictive in the medical field. There's so many different applications that are coming out to help in tackling this horrible pandemic. In terms of digital reasoning and just broader, there are a few really exciting opportunities. So first of all, from a culture perspective, AI, one area that we have on our roadmap is that AI can be used to identify human conversation that is sexist or racist, so can protect companies from a from a culture perspective, can go in and safeguard a culture, whereas there may be conversations that are happening that are not apparent. So by integrating this technology, it can really have a huge impact on a culture, on the employees, on the reputation of a company. So that is so important. I think also when you think about AI, there's certain areas just in terms of monitoring and surveillance in financial institutions. From a regulatory perspective, financial institutions must monitor conversations for risk. So when you think about it, if you're a pilot, you can't fly a plane if you're colorblind. There's certain things that are requirements for you. If you are a trader, you are agreeing to be monitored because of what you're doing for the financial security of your company. So AI can identify those risky conversations, but also opportunities. As I talked about from a customer service, they can look at mis-selling. If a trader is mis-selling, not selling what they should be, if someone is at risk to leave a company, there's conversations that are happening that can actually help identify issues, employee issues that may be having, or somebody that you want to make sure if somebody is going to leave your company, they don't take data or protected information. And so this AI machine learning can protect that company from so many things. Lastly, from a healthcare, what's interesting is, everyone has seen the news in terms of cancer, in terms of patients, because we are so focused on COVID, which we need to be. Patients that have cancer or at risk are not being identified. Hospitals, their resources are so stretched that they're not able to do that. By integrating our software, we can identify those people before it's too late. That you don't want to wait 6 months, lose a year until COVID. Hopefully it'll be sooner, but until COVID is under control. So that is a huge benefit as well.
Randi, that's fascinating because I think, as we know, what COVID has done is that it's really stretched our medical systems. And still to this day, as we're experiencing, like you and I are in the eastern part of the country, but places in the Midwest and the West and the South are just, there are new records every single day. And that really poses an incredible danger to just how other chronic and acute conditions are treated. And we hear this a lot from, the women in our network who, are cardiologists and general practitioners and pediatricians, where people are literally putting healthcare on hold because there's a fear about going into a doctor's office, going into a hospital right now and wanting not to be infected with COVID, but still neglecting then other critical components of their own overall health.
It's true, and in addition to that, and I think every one of us will have a story of a friend that went in for a regular checkup, whether it was blood work or they were having an x-ray or something, and all of a sudden the doctor identified something that was very serious, much more serious than what they originally were looking at. That is a large percentage of people that actually do get the care they need if they have cancer, heart disease, other areas. Because people aren't going in, even for their physicals. To your point, they're putting it on hold. That's being lost. People are not getting that identification and to care quick enough. And so what we hope this does is help hospitals bring people in quickly, much more quickly, be able to identify those markers that the hospital could have gotten to, but because of resources, they can't. And then be able to call the patient, tell them there's something going on. We've scheduled this test for you. We're going to take care of you. Here's how we're going to bring you, here's how we're going to take you through the process. That alone, from patient care, from bringing people in, can really address such a backlog. We have a hashtag at Digital Reasoning, which is beat the backlog. We need to beat the backlog, and that's what we want to do.
And I love that hashtag, by the way. That's a good one. But I would also imagine that, the work that you're doing is also helping Western medicine become much more integrative in the sense of how it thinks about the body as a whole system, rather than just a subset of parts, right? Because how often do we go to the doctor for something and either there's not a conversation about what other medications are we on and what can interact with, with what, to, understanding that a symptom may not be a symptom of one thing, but could be a symptom of something that's very seemingly in a very different part of your body, right? So I would imagine then, if how I'm understanding what you're saying now is that there's, ultimately then a much more holistic approach to how we think about the whole body.
What our solution does right now is, because it's kind of the newest product that Digital Reasoning has in terms of healthcare, a different industry from financial services, which is where we've been focused most recently, is specifically focused on cancer markers and lung nodules, etc. However, looking at the whole patient, I think also electronic records. When you get a ping, it's time for you to get your vaccine. It's no longer, it's much more interactive and personalized. Everyone has a portal. You go in. So I believe healthcare in general is becoming much more proactive and much more as a partner in helping people identify risks and stay healthy.
It's interesting because I see so much of your work kind of at the intersection of what's rational versus what's emotional too, right? And going back to the original part of our conversation around, the heart within the technology, the heart within the machine. I would imagine that for many viewers watching our show today, because, as we know, we're a mix of female corporate executives and business owners and entrepreneurs and funders and academics and, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not necessarily data scientists and not engineers, you could say, although we have those too. But I would imagine that there are some women, and obviously the wonderful men that support us too are watching, that feel a little uneasy about this conversation, because when you think about, the way in which communication is tracked and monitored, that could become scary for some people, right? Particularly for those of us who feel like big brothers, constantly watching us, and Alexa's taking notes down on, the most mundane details of our lives. But talk about, what does that mean to go from kind of this moment of fear around, welcoming technology into our lives, and really fully embracing it to really realizing it to its full potential. Again, kind of at that intersection of what's rational versus what's emotional.
Yeah, thanks. That's such a great question. I know that, we all think about technology and what does it mean to have us in their lives. To your point, there's headlines all the time. Big Brother's watching you. What does that mean? But what uh, what digital reasoning does, and at its best, what AI does and machine learning is work, to help, to actually to support, to provide information, knowledge, to help you as the customer or the business be the best that it can be. So when we think about AI, I was even thinking in marketing. What's so interesting is I just was reading about some technology. I actually get emails all the time. I'm sure many of your listeners do as well as you, Jan. I get emails all the time where I'm told that there's a new AI product that can help create a much more personalized experience for the end customer. So, in other words, takes in the information, learns about you, and delivers to you what you want. So, think about Nike. You go in, you can design your sneaker. It's amazing. Like there's a you put it, it's that virtual reality. I have the coolest sneakers. Mine would have hearts all over. Who knows? Be pink and purple. But then the Nike knows about me and is able to create and serve up things that are going to resonate with me much more, right? So that's one way. When there's actually a platform that, believe it or not, it's so crazy, takes copywriting. And by the way, there are great copywriters out there, but as a marketer, it's really hard to get some great copywriters to work with you and to understand your business. They are able to take copy that's been written and make it feel much more human and personal, which is so, you think that's counterintuitive, but it's about listening and learning and understanding. And so I think that there's a very rational feeling about what does technology mean? How can it help me or hurt me? And then there's that emotional, I've seen all these things in the headlines, all of this kind of concerns me, or I see an opportunity, and it's really kind of bringing the two together. I like to call it romotionally, as I think about everything I do in terms of how I think about our customers, how I think about communicating internally, externally. What are the underpinnings rationally and emotionally for someone, and how can you create your message and translate? Because AI machine learning can be scary. How can I translate? I like to think of myself as a great translator, concepts that are complicated, and make them more accessible for different audiences.
So, what I love about COVID and this whole new digital reality is that in moments when we're all together now, instead of thinking about outfit changes, we have background changes. Randy, I love your new background.
Thank you so much. I will say, if you can see any of the items in the back, they're actually tokens from my travels with my family all around the world. So thank you for
I
noticing.
love that. I love that. And hopefully very soon we'll all be able to travel around the
Uh,
world again.
I know. I just look at them longingly.
Well, and that's, I think it's important for us to reflect because I think, honestly, so many of us are so in the moment right now dealing with COVID, dealing with, unemployment or furloughs or, finding funding for our companies or just, kind of maintaining our households now that we're all living and working underneath the household with people we never thought we'd be spending so much time with on a day-to-day basis, right? But it's interesting the ways in which I think we're becoming much more local in how we shop, how we consume, how we communicate, but then also much more global in many of those same ways, right? It's kind of this really fascinating, I think, historic moment in time.
Yeah. It's interesting. Personally, I one of the things that has really been great is we were doing events for digital reasoning where we are a global company. So we are in London, EMEA, we're in APAC, Asia, Pacific. And so now what we're able to do is we had to do 2 or 3 different events. We're doing one and maybe one for APAC because of the time difference separately, but we're doing an executive forum, as I call it, in about a week. And it's global, which is
It's amazing.
also bringing chief compliance officers, all of our customers. I think we all know we all love to network and we miss that. So we have to think creatively now about how can we enable smaller roundtables, networking opportunities. How can we make that work? And it does enable us to be in some ways much more global and connecting our customers and prospects much more globally too.
It's so true, Randy. You talk a lot about the importance of learning with your customers, which is a very different take on, how companies stay connected and how companies think about doing customer service, right? And so talk to
Yes,
us, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, learning with your customers.
great. So I have always believed, and one of the reasons I love digital reasoning is they absolutely, it's reinforced. We're customer first. So it's all about our customers. It's about listening to our customers, learning from our customers, customer insights, market insights. It's so critical in terms of how you market, what products you deliver, what is the feedback on what you're currently delivering, what's the pulse. And so, what digital reasoning does is 2 things that I love. One is, besides getting customer input on a regular basis and having a feedback loop, um, they also, when we are introducing our product, the customers share data with us, and we actually create a proof of concept with the customer, a POC, and we're able to, because they trust us, we're able to show them how effective our software, our technology is. So that's the first thing. The other, which is also amazing, is we have incredible designers that are designing our front end, our user experience. We have customers that co-create with us. We actually set them up. We give them our front end interface, and they go through it and they say this works, this doesn't, and so the end product is actually created with and for customers, and I love that.
This is a perfect segue to my next question about customer experience.
Yes.
And I think what COVID is doing, and this I think this trend had already started prior to COVID, but just, the fact that as consumers, we're spending less on things and more on experiences, right? Because it's a different way for us to be able to connect with humanity, connect with the environment, connect with other people. Um, and wanted to get your thoughts on, you spent many years at Amex, and other companies as well, but just how has the shift of consumer and customer experience changed over time, and what are you seeing now in the sense of what have been some of your aha moments in that
Yeah.
evolution?
Yeah. It's a great question. Um, I think the shift is, we used to say, here's what I would say. So 2 things. One is, I would say, surprise and delight, right? We've all said that. We want to surprise and delight our customers. I think surprise is hard now because there's a raised expectation from customers that you know me, that you are going to deliver for me something that is personalized, that is something that is kind of a result of my behavior or how I've expressed myself. So, for example, even I go onto a site and I look at, I click on a pair of boots from a company. I am not shocked when all of a sudden that company shows up, right, on my Facebook feed or my LinkedIn or somewhere, Instagram. So I almost expect it. Like, I know now if I click on something, I actually know that it's going to come back. So, hey, I may not want to buy it right now, but if I click on it, I don't have to write it down because it's going to come up another 10 times. So that is so
It's
funny.
so true. It's so
Right? It's
true.
true. I purposely do that, guys, when I'm on Instagram because I know. And so it is a fine line. Again, we talk about privacy, right? But now because of, regulation, you have to accept cookies, everything's changed. So customers, it's more in your face that we are going to be monitoring you, or that we're going to take some info, not monitoring, but take some information about you. If you're a consumer, companies are going to do that and they're going to deliver. But there's also, I trust the companies that I say, yes, I can kind of trust. I know that they're not going to, do anything egregious with my information. So I think that there's an expectation of customization, personalization. There's little that really shocks, me anymore. But there's more engagement also among customers and consumers in experiences. So brands that even selling products are making it more experiential. That's another thing that I'm looking for. And then the last thing I'll say, which we touched on before, is I talked about that romotional, like the rational and emotional. When I first started marketing way back when, I had you would say something's a rational message, something's an emotional message. So I don't believe that exists anymore. I believe even when you're talking about financial products. So for example, when I ran the marketing for the small business division at American Express, we would communicate to small business owners and we would say, talk about payroll or cash flow. That's rational, but not if you're a small business owner. It's not rational. It's everything, right? You want to be able to take care of people, to meet payroll. So when you can find, even in rational products, what you're talking about, that emotional underpinning, because I believe it's almost always there. I really do. That creates a stickiness and a connection with your customer or your target audience that is something that often the competition doesn't do. So I think that is an important lesson that I've kind of learned over the years.
Randy, you seriously just gave me goosebumps on the payroll example
Oh,
because I can't help but think about, particularly in 2020, moving on to 2021, no doubt as well, is that I think you're right, like no matter COVID pandemic or not, but payroll for many companies is an emotional conversation, right? Because you want to do good by your employees, by your staff members, but then there's also the ebbs and flows with, how small businesses, fluctuate and survive and thrive or don't. I think right now also with COVID, what we've learned is that there's so much need out there, right? And I think a lot of creativity to think about how to do things differently, right? Like how to really step out of your comfort zone, step out of that sandbox and really get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's right. That's right. And I think that we, the consumer, the customer, B2B, the businesses are defining the new norm. So for us, when we think about communication and channels, again, I think about like a year or two ago, how did you communicate? You would communicate. We did have Slack. Of course, we had some of these channels, but you communicated formally. Now, even in business, how do you communicate? What do you think? WTVY. I've literally written that to coworkers. In my lifetime, I never thought I would do that, right? We are using channels differently. Zoom, my goodness, how a few years ago was it on anybody's radar? Crazy. What I wish I owned stock in Zoom. My life would be so different if I don't. But think about how CEOs are being hired for companies now over Zoom. You're never meeting someone in person. So the way that we communicate, the channels that we communicate, the language that we use, we as consumers, humans, are actually driving that innovation and creating and demanding it. And companies need to rise and to meet those demands. And that's exciting.
That is exciting. I often think about marketing in the past as, how can you help people save time or save money? But
Hmm.
now I think about, marketing from the perspective of how do you make someone feel something, right? Because
Yeah.
it's from that emotion that's how we create memories, right? And so
Yeah.
that's how brands stay sticky in their end users and their consumers and their communities' lives. Is that how do you ensure that, for a company like Warby Parker, for example, or Tom's of Maine, or Ben and Jerry's, or those brands that are, the symbols of, I Heart America.
That's right.
They make us feel something, right?
Yeah.
They really are. They excel at connecting to the customer in such a way where you consider them to almost be a part of your family. I'm just
Hmm.
thinking about all the Ben and Jerry's ice cream I've consumed since COVID. I don't know about you, but
That's right. Well, I think more and more companies, I mean, we know social, being connected to doing good, to the social purpose
Mhm.
is more and more important to consumers, to businesses. And that is honestly one of the reasons why I love digital reasoning and why I decided to go to digital reasoning. We started our conversation speaking about AI for good. That's not lip service. That's in the history and the DNA of what digital reasoning is about. Digital reasoning has been a company in existence for 20 years. And so the fact that the heart within the machine, what you had said, Jan, was there was a song because it's digital reasoning is based in Nashville. So music and how that brings people together. Our founder and co-CEO, our CEO, our founder and CEO actually worked on a song that the whole organization sang about being purposeful, about meaning, and about heart. So all of those things are so important and people are attracted. I can't tell you how many reasoners, as we call them, said one of the main reasons they came to DR was because of the work that digital reasoning did with Thorn or because of the healthcare work. So you attract the people that have the same values as you and understanding those values and how that's then communicated externally, internally to your customers and to the industries is so important.
Randy, I love, love, love. I'm actually taking notes. I love what you're saying right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. So in the beginning of our conversation, you talked about the work that you do or did in helping to fight sex trafficking. Can you talk to us a bit about how your application was used in that example?
Yes. So I'll give you, I can give you some example about that, Jan. So as I said, our founder and CEO actually worked on creating a software solution with Thorn that they were able to then integrate and identify words and languages, just like we've done in financial services with the intelligence community, that identified words or sentences that in a certain context represented represented risky human trafficking behavior. And so it was actually software. And what's so beautiful about it is we did it at cost. This was really, when you talk about being mission driven, this was not something that Tim Estes, who created that, who drove the creation of that with Thorn, he said, "Oh, we're going to go out and we're going to do this whole thing." This was a human need, really an opportunity to do good and to save children's lives, to save their lives. And he went into it and just, it was really a labor of love to do something that could have such an impact on the world was his primary mission. So that is now being used by Thorn. They have brought that in-house to their organization. And that was something that digital reasoning, our data scientists and engineers created for them, with them, for and with them.
It's so fascinating. I mean, there's so many amazing NGOs out there who really do such incredibly life-saving work. So I'm so thrilled to hear about that work that you did too.
Yeah, it was really, it honestly, as I said to you, It's in our DNA. But when I've spoken to, we have such talented reasoners that are in our organization, and they'll say, listen, we could have gone, I'm not going to say the name, to some big companies, right? Who would love to have data scientists and engineers and the talent that we have. But what we love about digital reasoning is it's so clear on the mission and the focus on protecting the things that matter. And that's, it's we walk the walk and talk the talk, and that makes a huge difference.
Randi, are you ready? Now it's time for the lightning round.
Uh-oh, I didn't know about this. Okay.
Exactly.
Whoops. I am always ready for a lightning round.
First place you will travel to internationally once we're able to all get on a plane.
Italy.
Again.
Italy.
Italy. Why Italy?
Because I fell in love with Venice when I was there with my husband. It was so romantic, and I just want to rent a house in Tuscany, bring my whole family and friends, drink a lot of wine, eat a lot of cheese, and just enjoy the good life for a while. So
I love that.
sure.
What are you binge watching right now?
Well, of course, the Great British Baking Challenge is a personal favorite of mine. I love it, and I also I have a series. It's crazy, but I'm actually looking at fun, kind of escapist series. It's called the Murdoch Mysteries. Look it up.
I've heard of this one. Okay.
Very,
Excellent.
very fun.
Good. That's one of my favorite questions because I'm also always looking for new, interesting shows to watch myself from a selfish perspective.
It's a great one.
In one phrase, how would you describe 2020?
2020. I have to clean up what I'm going to say. 2020 has been the most challenging year of my life, personally and professionally.
I asked this question to another person who didn't clean up.
I know. I was going to say it sucked, Jan, but I decided to be more PC. But 2020 sucked.
Last question. What advice would you give today to your 85-year-old self?
To my 85-year-old self? Oh, wow. That's a different one. Take time. I know this will sound cliche, to stop and smell the roses. Make sure that you never lose sight of what's important, which is always so key. And keep all the people that you love and care about close to your heart.
Randi, what are you looking most forward to as we think about closing out 2020, number one, and then talk to us about what's got you excited for 2021?
So what I'm looking most forward to is 2020 to be over. I don't think there is anyone that is not looking forward to that New Year's Eve. But what I will say that I feel really gratified about is working for a company that is an AI company that really is so relevant in this new norm, in this distributed workforce, in providing solutions and software support for financial institutions, healthcare institutions, and others that can really make a difference, has been very gratifying, because in this time, this is so needed from so many different perspectives. So that is something that I'm grateful for. I feel very lucky to be in this industry at this particular moment in time. I think for 2021, I pray that we are talking COVID is behind us, or at least in a much more controlled state, and that we are able to continue to in the US as well as globally, be able to work with organizations to integrate our solutions to help them from the customer, the shareholder, the employee perspective, to be able to make things better for them, but also continue to evolve solutions, as I was talking about, that are related to culture and that can really help tackle some of the world's most difficult problems and continue to make a difference in the world. I have great news, and thanks so much, Anne, for letting me share it with everyone today. So, a week ago, we announced in the press that Digital Reasoning was acquired by Smarsh. Smarsh is a market leader in enterprise information archiving, and together, DR, Digital Reasoning, and Smarsh are going to create this end to end holistic solution in a new category that we have created called communications intelligence. So that's taking communication analytics that we spoke about last time and adding in the AI, machine learning, the intelligence to make sure that we're defining actually a new category, a category of one for our customers. This is going to enable us to empower companies to remember, understand, and act on all their communications data. Why is this so important? It's so important because our lives have changed. Our new norm is this remote work environment, and it becomes even more complicated to be able to meet regulatory requirements, to be able to really provide those analytics that are necessary for companies without the ability to do this. So eventually, what that even means is that we're going to enable enterprises to spot other types of misconduct like racism, bullying, or sexual harassment. And they're going to be able to do this in almost every language worldwide. So it's a huge, huge leap and transformation for this industry.
Randi, congratulations. This is such incredible news. I'm so excited for you and for the team. And I would imagine too, I love what you're saying around the spirit of the collaboration and the importance of partnerships, particularly during this time. And I think that so many companies are stronger together when they actually work together in ways to really be able to bring new, amazing, innovative solutions to market.
I know it's just another way, as we said, that that we're using technology to empower, and it's really for good. It's for the betterment of the company, the reputation, the employee, the customer, and the shareholder. So we're very excited about our news.
That's amazing, Randi. And and I think that from the way in which, and I remember our conversation a couple of weeks ago where we talked about the good work that your company was already doing in the sense of ensuring that there's the continuous eye through the lens of racial and social justice. And it's really encouraging to hear that you're again putting that at the forefront of the work that you do in the sense of just how you think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and help companies to think through the same and to be able to bring to your point better solutions in a space where there's so much innovation and so much change happening so quickly. And I would imagine because of all that change, that it's even harder to understand areas of compliance and regulation when things are just changing day in and day out.
And as we said, just we were talking about the fact that we're Zooming or Skyping right now, and there's so many channels that are being used, and it's really humans are deciding which channels are the most important channels. And so having the ability to really integrate and look at those channels is really important.
So Randi, in Q1 of 2021, you have to come back and maybe hopefully we can have an in-person conversation.
I would love that, Jan. I think we would have a lot of fun.
We would. And I can't wait to hear more updates. And how do our viewers stay in touch with you? Does your contact information stay the same? Do they visit a different site when they want to learn more? Tell us how we can stay in touch before we meet again.
Yeah, so that's great. So the best way to stay in touch with me is to just access me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I'm happy to exchange information and to keep the conversation going because that's what I love to do.
Thank you, Randi. Thank you, everyone, for watching us today. I'm Jan Marcia-Dahms, the Vice President of U.S. Development with Joint Mayshad. Please make sure to leave a comment and like our video if you enjoyed what you watched today. And also, please make sure to check us out at joinmayshad.com. Join us as together we revolutionize how professional women connect, engage, and do business together. See you next time. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Hi, everyone. please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit the bell to receive notifications of all of our upcoming content. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Have a great day.